This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV on YouTube with another wrestling news update. WWE continues to do something that AEW really should do for the good of the wrestling business, and that is trim roster fat of people that aren't over or aren't being used. It's now been announced that the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, have been released along with Giovanni Vinci. They join Sonya Deville, Cedric Alexander, AOP, Paul Ellering, Blair Davenport, and Isla Dawn in the latest round of cuts. The name that's most popular in that group in 2025 would be Sonya Deville, but these are all very expendable people. Anderson and Gallows, and I do like Luke Gallows. I have wrestled him before. He split my eye open in a match in Deep South Wrestling, and I remember Nick Patrick did the first aid on it, and I was marking out at the time. It was 2006 that the former head WWE or head WCW official Nick Patrick was doing my first aid. But Anderson and Gallows, I'm not really sure why they re-signed them in June 2022. They haven't really done anything in that time. Their first, they were signed before from 2016 until 2020. At one point, I do remember hearing they were making around 750 grand a year at one point, because I remember one of the reasons given why they were released in their previous run around the time of COVID was because their contracts were overpaid at that time. And that was around the time where WWE was worried AEW was going to be competition and they were just signing everybody just to keep them away from AEW. But at this point, AEW has fallen greatly, and Anderson and Gallows, I mean, I could see them being in New Japan. And again, New Japan needs better wrestlers. They're at an all-time low right now. The indie scene is dead. The advent of AEW has pretty much killed the indie scene. So it's good rather than have all these wrestlers. And I'm sorry for you guys that are making all this money to do almost nothing. It sucks. But like for the good of the wrestling business, it's better to have wrestlers with somewhat name value on the indie scene, helping build the next generation of wrestlers and keep indie promotions alive, than just having people paid by large companies like AEW and WWE to sit at home and do nothing. I mean, there's a lot of indie companies that used to be big, like PWG and PCW Ultra, aren't even running events anymore. AEW and WWE work with a few of them to keep them going, such as that Defy in and what's it called? The one that just run the Hammerstein Ballroom, GCW. I mean, there's certain and House of Glory. There's certain select federations that AEW will feed some talent to. I mean, they should be feeding a lot more to, but there's only literally very few that they do. WWE is working with some with WWID talent, but overall, the indie scene is nowhere near as healthy as it was in the past. So hopefully, I'd like to see AEW do a whole round of roster cuts, and they could do a hell of a lot, and it would actually benefit the product. But they'd rather waste money keeping people under contract and not losing them, using them, and they have a lot under contract that aren't going to really make that much of a difference anywhere else, and are completely unhappy in AEW and are just being held for the sake of being held. Oh, you're funny, Brian. There needs to be promotion that has fluorescent light bulbs smashing titles. Speaking of, I always see these clips of fluorescent light bulbs. I mean, the stuff inside them can cause cancer, and for all these people that keep doing it, just to warn you guys. I mean, at one point, Necro Butcher, and he may or may not still have it. He had very serious cancer at one point, and I believe that's why he stopped wrestling. Extremely serious, like near death cancer. And there's a guy that did a lot of those stupid fluorescent light bulb matches, and I mean, I've done a couple of them, and I'm not a fan of them. They're very dangerous, particularly on the indie scene where you're getting paid crap, and they're not going to take care of your medical bills. The last piece of news I'll mention that also has to do with the guy that got released recently from TNA. Apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, PCO, a lot of people remember he was saying he was promised the TNA World Title, even though he was far from a top guy at the time he was released. Apparently, it was actually Scott D'Amore that had allegedly promised him a world title run at 57 years old. Yeah, that would have really lit up the company, set it on fire. The one interesting thing I will say that it will be interesting to see now that WWE is working with TNA as more of a development and feeder system, whereas in the past TNA would have picked up some of these guys. Like it'll be interesting to see if any of them go to TNA now that they have a working relationship with WWE, because in theory TNA can use WWE people now. So how many people that just got released from WWE would really be of any use to TNA at this point? I know they still have some of their own contracted talent, but they are working very closely with WWE now. So I'd expect. I mean, AEW's bloated; they don't need any more people, and I honestly don't think any of those people, other than Sonya Deville, would make a difference in AEW. So we'll see where they end up. I would think that the Good Brothers will end up in New Japan, and they'll probably be used a lot better there than just sitting at home like they have been in WWE. So good luck to them. They've made a lot of money in their careers. So Gallows, uh, I mean, I've seen his house. He was doing videos showing his house, and he did some pay-per-views, goofy wrestling type pay-per-views. He was doing like joke wrestling stuff at one point in time. He's got like a massive house. He looks like he's in really good financial shape. He was in WWE for a very long time, off and on, and TNA. My favorite character of his was Festus. Believe it or not, I think they could have done more with the Festus character, but he's had a lot of characters. So good luck to all of those released people in AEW. Why don't you take some advice from WWE that's profiting more than ever, and cut some of the fat from your roster. Release some of these people that want to be released, and a lot of these people don't deserve contracts and are just a pure waste of money. But if you want to waste money on them,